Shanti Shanti.
Then he says, Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha. Vishwavedaha means all-knowing. All-knowing Pusha. Now this Pusha means Poshana, means who nourishes us. Pusha means the God who nourishes everything. Now why he is called all-knowing? Vishwavedaha Pushaha Swasti. Nah. That, all-knowing Pusha, may our life be prosperous and auspicious. You make our life auspicious. Why are they saying that Pusha is all-knowing? Because ultimate nourishment is knowledge. We should not forget that. Food is a nourishment, air is a nourishment, but the ultimate nourishment is knowledge, which will nourish our mind, which will nourish our intelligence. And if those are nourished properly, if the intelligence, emotion and mind, they are nourished properly with the wisdom, then automatically our life will undergo change. Everything will become auspicious. So Pusha means one who nourishes us, but the nourishment comes from the knowledge, from wisdom. Vishwavedaha Pushaha Nah Swasti Swasti Swasti. Nah means for us. Let there be, may there be auspiciousness for us. May there be prosperity for us. Whenever they used to say prosperity, it is not only becoming multimillionaire, billionaire and all that. No, the prosperity, the concept of prosperity was different. It was a balanced material as well as adhyatmic, spiritual prosperity. Unless we have the inner prosperity, the wealth will spoil us, as it has done now. It will make us more and more selfish, more and more destructive. So when they are asking for prosperity also, it is a harmonious prosperity, where both inner and outer life is balanced, inner prosperity as well as outer prosperity. Swasti nastaksho arishtanemihi. Naha tarksha. Takshyaha Arishtanemihi. Takshya means the Garuda, a celestial bird, Garuda. Arishtanemihi. This Garuda is said to see the snake and pick it up from above. Arishtanemihi means who destroys all the evil. That is, Garuda is representing the force which takes away the evil from us. It can see from far above what are the evil items in us, and it can remove. So when we pray that Swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi, O Takshya, may our evils be removed. That means it is again self-addressed prayer. We have to examine ourselves, our own personality. Where is the evil lying? And pick it up and remove. That is the Takshya's job, the Garuda's job. Garuda is nowhere else. It might be a celestial bird, but we have to find his presence in us. That Taksha is in our own mind, in our own intelligence. We have to look into ourselves and find out where the evil is lying and pick it up and remove it. Always, nobody is comfortable with a bad mind which is always thinking in terms of selfishness, constrictions, or blaming others, criticizing others. Nobody is comfortable, but we are not able to get rid of it. We are still. Is anybody comfortable with such a mind which blames or which depreciates others, which does not appreciate the real virtues? Nobody is comfortable with such a mind. We know that, but we are hosting that mind. We are not able to get rid of it. Our duty is to find out where it is and then take it away. Completely eliminate it. That is what the Takshya, by praying to Garuda that, oh, the remover of evil, may our life become auspicious by removing the evils. Swastino Brihaspati'r dadhatu. May Brihaspati is considered the preceptor of the gods. He is the God of knowledge, wisdom. So ultimately we are praying to wisdom that may there be prosperity for us, may there be auspiciousness for us, because it is again the role of wisdom to give us an auspicious life. The supreme role of wisdom is there in this Shanti Patha also. See, in this, just the beginning, it is not even the Upanishad has not yet started. It is the Shanti Patha to make our mind like this. Unless we make our mind like this, auspicious, we will not be able to understand the meanings and the implication of Upanishadic verses. That is why before each study of Upanishads, we do this Shanti Patha. It ends with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I have explained earlier also, these three Shantis generally refers to three kinds of Shantis. One is Shanti from it is called Adhi Daivika Shanti. That means powers are there about which we cannot do anything. That is flood, earthquake, all those things, rains. We cannot do anything about it. So they are called Adhi Daivika. They are the Tapatrayas. We have the Tapatrayas, means three kinds of dukkhas we have. Dukkha from Adi Daivika reasons, causes. That we cannot do anything. We can only pray, but we cannot do anything. May there be such Shanti. Because suppose there is an earthquake, then we would not be able to have this class. How can we go ahead with our studies? If there had been a tsunami or a storm, we would not be able to proceed with the studies. So the nature has to support us. The nature has to make it convenient for us to go to practice our wisdom. So the first Shanti is the Adi Daivika Shanti, then Adi Bhautika, which are created by animals, I think including human beings also. Suppose war, etc. These are created by human beings. Earlier days, elephants coming and destroying, creating destruction, or some other such animal calamities from the animals. Now calamities are more from the human beings. Suppose terrorists are there, they attack, or any other riot. All these are Adi Bhautika. So unless there is Adi Bhautika peace, Shanti, we cannot proceed with our auspicious life or the practice of the sadhana. And the third one is Adhyatmika Shanti, which is not depending on the Adi Daivika or Adi Bhautika. It is entirely depending on our own personality. This Adhyatmika means it has again got three divisions. That is physical, mental and intelligential. All these three major aspects of our personality have to be peaceful. How physical peacefulness will come? By a disciplined life, disciplined food, disciplined habits. Otherwise, the body will not be comfortable. We will not have the physical peace. Suppose we overeat, then the gas will not allow us to grasp the truth. In studies, when we sit for studies, if you have eaten too much or if you are hungry, in both cases we will not be able to concentrate, we will not be able to grasp. So physical Shanti is very important. We should feel stable, we should feel very comfortable by our physical habits, our ahara, our whatever we are eating, how we are eating, how much we are eating, whatever the other disciplines we are practicing. That is why we always say that for study of scriptures or meditation or japa, let us keep a fixed time every day, a fixed place, fixed time, fixed sitting posture, so that the moment we enter the puja room or the meditation room, our mind automatically collects itself, and the body, when we sit, the mind automatically gets into meditation. The food, everything has to be under control, have to be disciplined. Similarly, the mind, if the mind is full of desires or desires for gaining something, or similarly selfishness and blaming others, thinking of others to depreciate others, then such a mind will not be able to grasp the truth. So the Shanti has to be there for the mind. It has to be Shanti means when it is free of desires, free of blaming, then it will be peaceful, it will be calm. Only in a calm mind the truth will dawn. And the intelligence, Shanti means the intelligence, our intelligence is always egoistic. It is always thinking that what I am thinking is the right. Whatever others saying is wrong. Oh, I was not able to counter tomorrow. I have got a reason now. Today I will see how my logic was the correct logic. Always our mind is going on egoistically thinking. Even while listening also, suppose we have an against feeling that the Shastras are not true. We know that no, this is not the truth. They are all making us, as we criticize the Shastras, always we criticize the Shastras. So that kind of egoistic nature of the intelligence have to be pacified. Unless the intelligence becomes humble, humility means it's a dip. The knowledge will dawn there, knowledge will flow there. So humility is extremely important for grasping the truth and its implications. So these three create the Adhyatmika Shanti, that physical condition, mental condition, which includes emotional condition also, and the intelligential condition. That means physical discipline, which will make the body comfortable, stable and peaceful. Mental discipline and freedom from desires and selfishness. And intelligential discipline, which means humility and openness to knowledge, readiness to absorb knowledge. So this is the Shanti Patha with which we start the Mundaka Upanishad. We will chant once more, you can follow. With the meaning should strike your mind when we are chanting. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shrunuyama Devaah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Sthirairangaistuštuvamsastanubhih Vyashema devahitam yadayuh Swasti na indro vruddhashravah Swasti nah pusha vishvavedah Swasti nastarksho arishtanemih Swasti no brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will go to the first mantra of Mundaka Upanishad. Om Brahma Devanam Prathamas Sambhabhuva Om Brahma Devanam Prathamas Sambhabhuva Vishvasya Katta Bhuvanasya Gopta Sabrahma Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtham Atharvaya Jyeshthaputraya Praha अथर्वणेयां प्रवदेत ब्रह्मा अथर्वातां पुरोवाचाङ्गिरे ब्रह्मविद्याम्
अथर्वाण पुरोवाचङ्गिरे ब्रह्मविद्याम्
स भारद्वाजाय सत्यवहाय प्राह
सभारद्वाजाय सत्यवहाय प्राह
भारद्वाजोऽङ्गिरसे परावराम्
भारद्वाजोऽङ्गिरसे परावराम्.
See, this is our way, that before introducing the knowledge which is considered to be the supreme, unless the importance of the knowledge is specifically stated and the listeners or the disciples, they understand the supreme value of the knowledge, they will not give enough importance to it. To take anything properly, we have to give it the proper importance, be it wealth or knowledge or anything. Unless we evaluate it to be the supreme or to be having a very great value, we will not be able to take it. As it is often, we have so many stories like that. That Parashamani, one person was looking for, and he got it in the beginning itself. He knew that it is very difficult to get. So he got it and he threw it, saying that it cannot be got so easily, because he did not know what it is. Another herdsman, he got a diamond. He did not know. He thought that it's a beautiful glass. So he put it on the goat's neck. He put it as a locket in the goat's neck, his goat. Now a proper jeweler, he saw it and he could identify that it is actually a diamond, which is uncut. So he bought the goat and took the goat at a very nominal price and got the diamond. So anything that has got a certain value, we have to understand the value of it. That is why these shlokas are there. What they are saying here is the importance of this Brahma Vidya that he is going to present in the Upanishad. One great importance is how it has come down over thousands of years through the lineage, that some great people, great rishis, he has passed over to his greatest disciple, then he has passed over to his most important disciple. Like that, a lineage is talked about, that it is not born only yesterday or 100 years ago or 200 years ago and it will be thrown now. As it happens with many things which are shallow, it does not stay. Within 10 years people forget what was it. Even songs and other classical songs, it has been continuing for so many thousands of years. But the modern songs, they go on changing. After even 50 years, nobody remembers them. Like that in literature also. Everywhere it is like that. So here they are saying that Brahma, here there are some concepts. One is Brahma. Brahma, long. It is not Brahman or Brahma. Brahma means the ultimate consciousness or the ultimate transcendental truth. That is Brahman or Brahma. Brahma means the concept of a creator. In Vedanta itself, from the Brahma to the blade of grass, everything is within the causal creation. And they are under, if you call Maya, it is Maya, or in the transient truth. Brahma, there are many Brahmas. They are coming and going with the different yugas, different worlds like that. So the creation starts from Brahma. It is actually, if we go into the truth, you will find that we cannot go without causality. From birth, we are seeing the causality relationship. Is it not so? Suppose we push the table, then only it moves. Otherwise it doesn't move. So there is a cause behind everything that is happening. That is why Newton wanted to form the laws of gravitation. Otherwise, apple is falling, this is happening, that thing is happening. How does it matter? Many phenomena are there. But we try to relate them by cause, why it is happening, how it is happening, etc. So from birth onward, we think in terms of causality. That is why we try to find out that who has created this world? Who has created this universe? So we posit a Brahma Suppose we posit a cause for the universe, then naturally we will ask, who has created him? Suppose you tell your child that there is a God who has created the universe, that will not the child ask that who has created that God? It's a valid question. But by that, if you go to any amount, any length of this chain, it never ends. Whatever is the ultimate cause you get, you will ask that who has caused this? It is because of our causal way of understanding. I will discuss later, if possible, that this causality can never explain any ultimate truth by very definition, because causality means two. There is a cause, there is an effect. But the ultimate truth is beyond this duality, cannot duality. It cannot be attained by causality. It has to be beyond the causal change. So the ultimate truth in our Shastras as well as otherwise also, to attain the ultimate truth, we have to go beyond causality. But for general understanding or preliminary understanding, we posit a Brahma saying that he is Swayambhu. Swayambhu means self-born. That means we don't look for a cause behind. You consider one Brahma who has created the universe. Beyond that, don't ask for cause. So we are truncating the causality there. That is also our concept, our imagination, but let us accept that it is so. But he is considered that the ultimate creator of the universe. So he says that what I am going to tell you, this Brahma Vidya, is given by that ultimate creator of the universe. If we really think about it, we will understand the value of it, that it is not 100 years, 1000 years or 10,000 years or even 21 million years. This Vidya has come down to us from the creator, the ancient creator who has created this universe. It is so old, it's the most ancient. He says that this Brahma, who is the creator as well as the protector of the world, he gave it to his Jeshta Putra, his eldest son, Atharva. Atharva was Brahma's eldest son. Now this belongs to Atharva Veda. This Mundaka Upanishad belongs to Atharva Veda because it has come down from, all the Vedas have come down from Brahma. But the fragmentation of the Vedas, Atharva Veda is coming down from Atharva, is the Rishi of it. So Brahma gave it to Atharva. Now Atharva, what did he do? Whatever Brahma had given, Atharvaneyam pravadeta Brahma, whatever Brahma had given to Atharva, Atharvatam puro vachangire Brahma Vidyam. That Brahma Vidya, Atharva, understanding fully, practicing fully, grasping and actualizing the knowledge, whatever he had got from his Guru, Brahma, father, that time, the Creator himself was the father as well as the Guru, preceptor. Whatever he got, he passed it over to the ancient Angi Rishi. Angi, that becomes Angire, means to Angi. This Brahma Vidya was passed on. That means he did not mutilate it. He did not try to make it simple and modify it and so that things will become easier. No. He had to pass it over exactly the essence of the truth, whatever he had received from Brahma, without tarnishing the truth, without tampering with the essence, he passed it over to the next Rishi, Angi. Now what did Angi do? Sa Bharadvajaya Satyavahaya Praha. He gave it to Satyavaha. Satyavaha, who carries the Satya, the truth. Satyavaha, who belonged to the Bharadvaja lineage. Bharadvaja means belonging to the Bharadvaja lineage. That means Bharadvaja is another Rishi, ancient Rishi. His lineage, Satyavaha was a Rishi to whom it was given, Brahma Vidya was given. Now what did Satyavaha do? Bharadvajo, that means Satyavaha, he gave it to Angiras, Angirase. Actually it is, Angiras is like Nachiketas. The first word should be Nachiketa, like Angira is the Rishi. But we say generally in English Angiras, Angiras. So he gave it to Angiras. Now This is the lineage. Why? Because Angiras now will be the guru of this Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad starts with what Angiras says. So up to this he is taking down the lineage. That Angiras, it is not manufactured by Angiras, but it has come down from Brahma himself, untarnished in the lineage. One after another has passed it over, and finally it has come down to Angiras, who is going to give you the same truth in the form of Mundaka Upanishad. This we should understand. Here in this Upanishad, Angiras will give it to Shaunaka. That is the Mundaka Upanishad.